Really excited to have Ericka Galbraith with me. She wears a lot of hats at ESPN, has been there since 2000, coordinated producer for Volleyball, also coming off that lacrosse season. And she joins me on the On to Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley. I've done ESPN work for volleyball, but also a radio anchor and tennis. And this is a platform where we really get to see the human side of Ericka and learn about her journey, but also learn about the obstacles and how she met her husband, who also works in sports. So we're going to really channel our empathic gene here to really get to know who Ericka is on a deep level. Ericka, I'm excited to have you on as we talk your story. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Why is it so hard for people to outwork you?
That's a great starting question. I would say that I'm a perfectionist. I will give everything I've got, and what I've shared with others is that if my name is going to be attached to it's I'm all in. I'm all in on everything I work towards and work with, and I think that that's what makes me a little bit different.
How far back can you trace that? Even as a child, like you noticing you were being a perfectionist with that fourth grade math teacher and you want to get everything right? Or how far back can you locate
Probably not
that
the fourth grade math teacher, but no, it's interesting. I think as I look back at my childhood, I was very competitive, and I still am. I am a fierce competitor, and I do so with, I think, an angle of like happiness and joy. And so when I was a child growing up, I was a gymnast and I loved playing volleyball. And I had two older sisters that, whether they know it or not, they pushed me because I had to keep up with them. And they were athletes as well, and they were very, very smart. And so I tried to, as the third daughter in our family, just keep up with everyone, but I was competitive and I always wanted to be just as good, if not better than them. And I had, was a few years younger. So I had the edge in learning from them and learning from all of the great things that they were doing and all of the things that I thought I could do better along the way, or maybe knew more, but probably didn't.
So that's interesting, Ericka. Being you, the third daughter, you see how that plays into the way in which you attack your work now,
Yeah.
where you have that competitiveness and that, hey, I might not be the first or second, but I'm going to do it better than you. Do you see how there are parallels to your childhood in the way in which now that you attack your work and your philosophy in the biz?
Oh, 100%. And it's funny because my sisters still keep me in check. I think they do a really good job of grounding me on a regular basis. And I'm 90% certain that they are still looking, going, how on the planet did Ericka end up in this role? But they're still helpful. Like my oldest sister is heavily involved in the volleyball community in Nebraska. And just the other day we were going back and forth on some of the coverage and what she's seeing as more of the casual fan, but the Nebraska fan. And so she's still helping me, but it's that drive and the ability. When I came into ESPN in 2000, and I was one of, I don't even know what the percentage of females was at the time, but this mentality of, I got this, like I can handle this, I can keep up with them. And I think in some regards it was probably bolder than it should have been at that point in my life. But it's at this point, it's what do you have to lose? Go be yourself.
With that mindset, and Ericka Galbraith is with me, I'm Bryan Fenley. How many all-nighters have you pulled in working on projects at ESPN and working through that?
Yeah, it's funny. So I started out in true production, as a production assistant, and before that, a runner and a stage manager while I was in college. I can't tell you how many all-nighters that I pulled, but I do share with a lot of people that if you're really trying to find out what you're passionate about, pay attention to where you're going to spend your time up all night, and you do it again and again and again. And there were certainly times where, I think back to the early X Games where we were live to tape. And I was just sharing with someone, gosh, 2 days ago about the all-nighters that we pulled just trying to get elements to tape and just trying to turn around those live productions. And that shows depth. It shows grit, and I'm all about that. And it was a fun environment in which we all just worked our tails off and kind of came from all over the country together, and we're all athletes, and kind of roll up your sleeves and let's do this. So
How have you found it best to work through fatigue? Like when you're working on these long projects, what to you works to power through that you found that can continue to get you to crank out these projects on a tight deadline, even though fatigue is there?
You know, one of the things that's kind of interesting is, in my childhood and in my adolescence, I had to experience a lot of tragedy and a lot of different things that happened unexpectedly. And in those moments is where I think you find out who you are as a human. And so when you're passionate about something, or when you're amidst a bunch of chaos, it's you find a way to try to slow it down, to calm it down, and to surround yourself with people that are, in a similar position as you, that you're not afraid, like I said before, to roll up your sleeves and really dig in and prove to yourself what you've got. I'll also tell you that, as a mom of twin boys who are 5 years old, and a husband who, works in academics and sports and what have you, finding that balance and drawing some boundaries is really important for me too. To go, okay, I'm gonna take a breath. In this last night perfect example, we've got a ton of things happening in the volleyball space, and instead I had to turn it off and go to my kiddos' t-ball game, their first t-ball game, and it keeps me balanced, and it keeps me in real life. And so sometimes in TV we get sucked into things, and it becomes our identity and everything that we have. And I find by finding a little bit more of that balance, it makes me a better leader and have a different perspective that a lot of people may not have.
What kind of sports parent are you when you're
Oh, I'm
watching
the
your kids
worst.
play t-ball?
It's funny. You should ask my husband that question. But I try to be very calm, but I'm very encouraging. And sometimes I'm the parent that I cry when I'm proud. And so I think back to like my niece in a gymnastics meet. She was like 8 years old, and she was on the balance beam, and she was doing such a graceful, beautiful job. And my sister looked at me, and I've got tears streaming, and because I'm so proud of her. And same thing with, my little boys last night, hitting the ball, and I'm like getting teary eyed because I'm so proud. But I'm also that mom that's competitive. And so my husband laughed when I'm the only parent that's just rooting for all the kids to do well, because I'm, recognizing that they're 5 and they're learning, and they need encouragement. And so I'm a little bit more vocal than I probably should be.
That's the charisma. That's good vibes coming out. Ericka Galbraith is with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. So you talked about how you show them, your 5-year-olds, how proud you are of them.
Mhm.
How at their young age, their tender young age, Ericka, do they show you how much you mean to them?
Oh, don't. You're going to make me cry. See, I said I'm the person that cries in proud moments. I think they say some of the coolest things. They call lacrosse bacrosse. And when I first started working on lacrosse, and we had a lot of lacrosse on our TVs in our household, they took their little plastic table, they took the legs off their table, and they're like, "Look, Mom, we're playing lacrosse too. Do you oversee that?" And they didn't use the word oversee, but is that your sport? And I'm like, "Yep, you got it." And so, but my favorite moment are those real moments when I'm watching them get off the bus, coming running towards me. Or, my husband travels a lot, I travel a lot, and the other day I went to Philadelphia for the PLL championship, and they're like, "Mom, we're gonna miss you, but I'm not gonna cry." And I'm like, "Okay, you got it." But they're at this like beautiful, pure, honest age, and I couldn't be happier to have, be surrounded by such wonderful people in my life with my little boys and my husband.
What do your boys get to experience as a child that maybe you didn't? I know, you talked about some challenges early on and the ways in which, maybe you had to grow up early in that
Yep.
sense from your perspective.
What I love is that I'm a little bit of an older parent, and that I was established in who I am as a human being, and my husband same way, where we met when we were a little bit older. So we had kids when we were older. So we know exactly who we are, and he and I are a very good team. So they get to experience some calm, some like just the simplicity of not trying to figure out who you are and what your career is and going in a different million different directions, but the stability part is really important for me. The education piece of it, the kindness, like the different lessons that we're able to teach them, throughout our lives. And my husband, when he drops them off at school, it's be a good kiddo today, be a good friend, be a good person, and that's what we continuously instill in them, because I think that they do get to experience a lot of really cool things and things that they will likely take for granted, that my husband and I never got to experience as kids. So
The pride that you have in being a parent in your work that, as you mentioned, that your kids have for you. But what about the pride you have in yourself and everything you went through, even before you got to ESPN? And how much do you allow yourself to sort of pat yourself on the back and just let that reflect and sit with you, just what you got to overcome?
it's it's hard. Yes, I'm proud of it, but I wouldn't be here without so many people that influenced my life. And that's from a young person to today. I've been surrounded by amazing people. And someone once told me, like, if you ever wondered who you are as a person, you're the average of the five people that you spend the most time with. And that just, it really stuck with me, because it just goes to show, like, surround yourself with good people, be a good person to someone else, especially if you're in their life a lot. Like, be the top and be the best of who you can be as a human being, and just support others. And it's kind of, paying back all of the people that sacrifice so much for me. And I don't take that for granted at all.
What about your husband do you not take for granted?
um, he is he is so calm. He is such a good human being. He is so smart. Um, and like, we have a very, like, I adore him. And one of my mentors, knowing both of us independently, was like, wow, you guys are a really great couple. Because when we would, a long time ago, when we would go into a room, I knew all of the broadcast people and all of the ESPN people. He knew all of the sport people and the league people and what have you. And so the two of us together, I'm like, oh, tell me more, tell me more about that commissioner. And then he'd be like, tell me more about that executive. And we are a really good complement for each other. And sometimes when I'm, here, he brings me here. And sometimes when he's going, I'm like, okay, let's pull back. But we fit each other really well. And I don't take that for granted at all.
Do you allow him, and when you do, to give you feedback on your work? What do you like to hear from him as far as his feedback and what you do, given that both of you are in sports?
We watch games differently, and I learn a lot from him. And he's the encyclopedia of knowledge. He can hold on to statistics and context and reference, and I love it when he gives me that type of information. The other thing that I love in the lacrosse space and in the volleyball space is, while he's in depth in football and your more traditional sports, he doesn't know a whole lot about those. And so he gets to give me the common fan viewpoint, and talks to me about, the barrier of entry into the lacrosse space, and the importance of, women's athletics, and what, sometimes he's dealing with on the more academic side and the school side. So it just helps round us all out. But I love his perspective, and it's very rare that he goes too far. Sometimes we have different perspectives and different lenses, but I think we both appreciate each other's perspectives for sure.
What do you think he appreciates most about your perspective?
Probably my passion. I think he he respects that, but I think sometimes he's like, okay, lady, step back. But yeah, I think he draws from I like to front load my to-do list. I'm a doer. I am a little bit, maybe a lot neurotic and OCD. And so I think he appreciates that piece. I think he also appreciates how much I care and respect, am and in touch with my team or with our team. And I think I think he can see that the passion that I have is pretty, it's real. It's nothing that you can make up. And I want to do good. I want to inspire people, and I want everyone to come to work and love what they're doing.
Why do you have that mindset? Because people, they feel that, and it makes the team, as you're talking about, that much better, well-oiled and more efficient, and they put on better broadcasts. But why deep at your core, Ericka, do you care so much about other people, and that you want to see so many others succeed, and that you want to inspire? Why is that such a pressing point of your purpose?
I think, coming up, so I've been in this industry for 22 years, and I've seen a lot of things. And even in the early days when I was in, true production going up that ladder, I think sometimes, and some leaders like to hold people down, or like, them to be good but not that good. And there's a certain level of security in the leaders that want you to be the best version of yourself, and I want to be that for others. Like, I want them, to bring, and I've said this to, any team that I've overseen, is like, bring your authentic you to the table, and everybody's got a voice. And I don't, I think back to being intimidated as, a female in the room of, several males, and being a little bit scared of what my perspective would look like, or, being told like, you will never be X. And that's driven me, but it's also supported me in thinking about the people that are coming behind me, and they've got to feel free to be who they are in this environment. And I want to provide kind of that safe space for people to feel like it's okay if our opinions aren't aligned, or it's okay if I make a mistake, because I'm rooting for them, not against them.
When you have people that know you're rooting for them, Ericka, how does that impact positively their performance?
Everyone's when you are on a cycle of positive momentum, it's amazing to see how the team pushes forward in such a positive way. And then you've got people that are just coming up with new ideas and are motivated and are just pushing things forward. It's almost inspiring, and it's like this weight is lifted because you're not fearful of making mistakes, or like, I make mistakes all the time. And if I had someone that was going to tally up all my mistakes, I'd be afraid to even speak up. So it's just the positive momentum that brings to the table in the lacrosse space, in the volleyball space, and any of these other spaces that I get to impact. Like, you know what? Why not? Let's give it a try. And I think it's freeing for a lot of people to just be their authentic selves.
Part of your authentic self is the inner strength that you have. How would you describe that inner strength that's carried you all these years and has turned what once was a runner and working at, when you went to Nebraska, to what you're doing now, and being a coordinator producer of multiple sports?
Oh, my inner strength. How would I describe it? I just it's interesting, and I don't know when the flip was switched, but from going to someone that was a little bit intimidated, I like to quietly listen to others, to really be thoughtful about decisions. I, you know, I just kind of, I don't want to say stopped caring, but it was like I stopped caring what others thought. And again, someone told me a long time ago about like when you're afraid to speak up in a meeting, channel your inner athlete. Like when you were on the court or anywhere else, like go make that play. You never thought about it when you were on the court or the field or anywhere that you were. So why let others be a barrier for you to have a voice or an opinion? And you can do it in a diplomatic way that's not abrupt or mean-spirited or light and fluffy. Like you can find your balance. And I think that, I'm an observer of life and of people, and I've learned so much along the way that has just really kind of shaped me to who I am right now.
And Ericka, as we sort of wrap up this conversation, everything that you've learned and everything that you've gleaned, and you talking about how you've grown and been able to speak up for yourself through this process, and then not been afraid, and that's sort of that fearless you have to be mindset. What about your journey is not a surprise to you?
Oh, what's not a surprise to me? That's an interesting question. I think that I always wanted more. And I think, similar to some of the elite athletes that we work with, the competitive nature that I have, like I, I never wanted to settle for mediocrity, and, while some of these things are a surprise and some that were subconscious, I knew that being told, no, you can't, I'm like, oh, there is a workaround for this. And I'm going to go outside, I'm going to get broader experiences, and I'm going to persevere in this. And so it was interesting that in our first volleyball game, and this is my first season overseeing it, I was sitting at a restaurant with my husband as our first volleyball game came on. And again, going back to that sense of pride, like I got teary-eyed and he's like, what's the matter with you? I'm like, I was so proud seeing our game on the air and knowing that I have the responsibility now and the accountability to oversee something that I care so deeply about. And so while I'd say it whether it's a surprise or not, it just feels like I'm right where I need to be.
Those words make you such an amazing role model and an inspirational force. So this really has been such a fantastic, amazing conversation, Ericka. And as we sort of put the bow on this, thank you so much for your openness. Thanks so much for, the inner strength that you've shown to open up doors for others, and the caring mindset that you have, and letting us into your life in a beautiful way, and showing us what it's like living in your house, and your two kids, and your husband, and how you make a great team there. And also you've got the great team at ESPN. Ericka Galbraith, I'm Bryan Fenley. Have done some ESPN work with volleyball. Thank you so much, Ericka, for doing this. This was so much fun. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise, thank you.